We're an environmental organization on Barnegat Bay. Our goal is to help people to understand the importance of water quality and all the creatures that live in it. We happen to use clams and oysters as really a teaching moment, and the growing of those little creatures to educate people as to their needs and the importance of all the life in Barnegat Bay. The organization is called Reclam the Bay because when we first started we were talking about bay reclamation. And we said, well, how would we know if the bay were reclaimed, if we had succeeded? And Jeff Flimlin, who was running the program from Rutgers Extension Service, said, well, if shellfish populations started to sustain themselves and we saw more life in the bay, we would know that we were successful. So we said, oh, so if we reclaim the bay, we would have reclaimed the bay. Now that's probably a long way off, but that's our goal. Although it's important to restock our shellfish populations, we find the greater importance is to understand the needs of animals and creatures that live in the bay. Our motto is bay reclamation through education, and education through reclamation. So our volunteers and the people that help us are all hands-on people. We learn about growing shellfish. We have a whole education program that runs in the spring and the follow-up in the fall, and we have interns that work throughout the summer to grow the clams. So these are the different things that we talk about. One of the points that we make to people is that clams do a great job. Shellfish filter the water. And you can see this water that these little baby shellfish are growing in. They have been cycling the water for about an hour now. And this is bay water that we just put in with a couple of large clams not too long ago. So you can see the difference. This water is almost crystal clear, while the other water still has a lot of the algae still living in it. So that's what they do. The problem is that too much nitrogen in our water supply spikes the algae. The algae gets so thick that the clams can't eat it. So at one level, algae is important because it's food. At another level, it's not good because it's too much for them to cycle. So when people talk to us about the filter feeding and the importance of shellfish, sometimes we're a little misunderstood, believing that you could put 1 trillion shellfish in the bay and it would clean up all the pollution. That's not really the truth. What is the truth is that if we learn from the small clams and shellfish what their needs are, humans can put less nitrogen into the water column, and then the last little bit of algae is what the shellfish will live on to make the water less turbid, more clear. And that helps eelgrass and many other species that are necessary for the whole ecosystem. So at Reclam the Bay, we use the growth of shellfish as a teaching moment to get people involved in the living critters that are in the bay. The little shellfish are sort of like the canary in the coal mine. If they're healthy and they're doing well, then it's great for higher forms like us. Now these are baby shellfish. These are about a month old. You can see how tiny they are. They're just a little bit bigger than maybe a poppy seed. That's how big they are when we get them. We've had these now for about a week and they've almost doubled their size. They grow very quickly at first. Most of the clams that we eat are probably 3 to 5 years old, and I'll show you what they look like. The clams that we eat, this would be a little neck. Clam has to be 1.5 inches from here to here for it to be legal to be harvested, and you do need a license issued by the state of New Jersey to harvest clams. There are a lot of interesting things about them. This happens to be certain marking. This is called a subspecies called notata. The scientific name for these are mercenaria. They're the clams, hard clams that are in the bay. There's another thing that's interesting about this clam. If you look at this little point here, that's how big that clam was when we put it in the bay. So it went from the very small one in the palm of my hand to this size in a year. At the end of that year, we put it down in the bay, and then it grew to this stop line within the first year after in the bay, another stop line, and then its third and final stop line. So that's about how old they are. The way that we grow the clams is we take the small seed, And we grow it for several weeks. Now this is probably 2-month-old clams. We actually got these clams from Florida. It's now June, and it's late June, and it's about the time that we start to get our seed, as I showed you those small ones. But just to give you an idea, these are on a board, just to show you relative size. Normally they'd be in the sand. So these would be the ones after the first year. This is after the second year. This is after the third year. Now, we use this board to explain that when we put them on the bay floor, we put a net over them. The net is there so that predators can't eat them. I'll show you what a predator is and what a predator can do. That's a moon snail. Moon snails are predators for clams. We're not angry with moon snails. It's just clams are their food, and we're happy that moon snails live in the bay. But what they do is a moon snail will get on top of a clam and will just turn around and turn around and turn around as it pecks and pecks till there is a perfect hole in the clam shell. It will then digest the clam from inside. Another predator is the starfish. The starfish wraps its legs around the clam and ever so slowly pries until it gets the clam apart, and then it has a method to digest the clam. So there are many predators, and that's why every one of our million shellfish that we put in the bay each year don't survive. But as in nature, it's all a great big numbers game. So the more clams that we put in the bay, the more hopefully will survive. The more that do survive, hopefully will repopulate the bay to some level. We would just like to see the bay reach a level of sustainability. That is where nature would be producing enough offspring to replace those that are taken by predation or by recreational clammers. Most of the commercial clammers are gone in Barnegat Bay. At one time there were over 500 of them. Now there are less than maybe 30. And most of those commercial guys are practicing aquaculture, where they actually grow a crop of clams in the bay and then harvest their crop. There are just not enough wild clams for many people to make a living. We would like to change that, again, to reach that level of sustainability. Well, clams aren't the only shellfish that live in the bay. There are also a number of other shellfish, and we just like to tell people about that to understand the biodiversity. This is the whelk. The whelk also feeds on baby shellfish. There are also oysters, and each year we grow about 300,000 to 500,000 oysters. Bay scallops, we're starting to see some more of them come back. Blue mussels, there are many blue mussels. They're delicious, great eating. You usually get them in the late spring, very early summer. Once the bay water reaches a temperature probably above 75, the mussels start to go back. And then over on the ocean side, this is a surf clam. Now that's a big old surf clam. This is a large Mercenaria or quahog clam, the big brother of the clams that we grow. We believe that all of this should be fun, entertaining, and educational. A few years ago, we came up with an idea of taking molds for a giant clam, which is 5.5 feet tall, and having artists decorate them as a fun way to raise awareness of what we were doing. We decided we'd make that an educational activity by putting a plaque on each one of those clams, and on that plaque there is a fact, and that fact is something about shellfish restoration, the bay, water quality, the ecosystem of Barnegat Bay, and those kinds of things. And so the game then is to go around to the various locations on something called the Clam Trail, find the giant clams or find the fact plaques, record them either on a piece of paper that's part of a map, or they can be recorded at our website, which is reclamthebay.org. And then you will receive points, and based on the number of points, you can earn a really neat pewter pin of a clam that will be sent to you. So the Clam Trail incorporates travel around the bay with fun facts about the bay and a game to make it fun for everybody. The clams also, there are now over 24 of them around Barnegat Bay, and we have little cards that represent the various clams. And people can collect the cards. I'll show you them in just a minute. So the Clam Trail is based on many of the giant clams, and here's a little card that tells where all the different clams are located. The map gives you specific street locations so you can go to them. And then we have these cards. Each one of the cards is for each one of the different clams, so people can collect a set of cards. And on the back of the card is a fact, and that's the basis for the game that we play. So we provide people the cards, the picture of the clams, and then as a fundraiser, we have a neat little thing they call a beach safe, so you can put things in that and then close it up, and it's watertight so things at the beach won't get wet. Any money that you donate, goes 100% of it goes to education or putting the shellfish in the bay.